what's the first principles of reality? So, I mean, reality can be defined in a lot of ways through many, many perspectives. But is there something underneath that we can experience, direct experience for ourselves, and that is a building block for all of those perspectives and for all of those belief systems and the fears and loves and pains and pleasures and all the rest of it? If we want to have a look at reality, the realness of reality, from not just one perspective, and if we're lucky, maybe we're open-minded enough to see it from a couple of different perspectives. But what can we deduce from reality through our own experience first? So we start with a blank slate. So a blank page, we just wipe everything clean. We say like, okay, let's just start from the ground up. There's nothing else. There's no belief systems, there's no right or wrong, there's no morals, there's no stories and creation stories or whatever it is, whatever our belief systems is, or belief systems are, whatever our coping mechanisms, our defense mechanisms, whatever our survival strategies, everything like that. We just wipe that completely clean. And then we can sit back and say, okay, what in my life can I observe? What is it in your life? What can you observe about yourself from a clean slate?
How brutally honest are we prepared to be to share these fundamentals, first person experiences? Because most people are still, I don't know, they speak almost from a idea of what they think or we think other people think and other people believe, without actually asking them, without actually having one-to-one conversations, without actually having debates and heated conversation about fundamentally what people believe. Because when I have one-on-one discussions with people, there's so much fear trapped in so many of these points of view, individualized points of fears, and I realize like we're all missing each other because we're separating to be an individual, but we are not individual. It's like a dichotomy, as always. It's 42, you know. But we need to. I mean, I'm just saying, can we, if we cannot, as a small conscious community, find a if we can't even have a discussion or even an opening to allow for a different perspective, as a small group that consider ourselves open-minded and anything goes, and how can we have any expectations of any systems, of any reality, of any individual? Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, like,
yeah, that's a very good question. That's the core of the question. Okay, so basically, we have to find common ground that we can all agree on. Okay, and if we look at all our different perspectives, the community is there for everybody to share their own perspective. freely and not to be judged, and everybody tries to be open-minded and all that, but it doesn't mean that everybody agrees with you. Okay, so your perspective is your perspective, and same as mine. So everything I do on the group or whatever, I don't expect anybody to believe it or like
Absolutely.
accept it. I want people to challenge it. I want people to question it, because I need to always double check myself. And if I can double check myself up to a point, but then I need others to also step in and double check me and my thinking. So as a community, I think the one prerequisite would be to, first of all, approach everything with an open mind, so that there's no center ideology or story or anything that we're trying to push or forward or anything like that. But for us to be able to get there, we need to agree on some very core fundamentals. So for me, the first one would be awareness. As I sit here, I'm aware. And that's just that. There is awareness. It's not even I'm aware, you're aware. What is awareness? Is the rock aware? That's all like good inquiries and things to keep our mind busy. But as a fundamental first principle, I would say there's two. First is there is awareness, and the second is events happen. So, and that's the only two that we work from. So if we can, and we can try and challenge that, but as beings, living beings, entities, thoughtful, whatever we want to call ourselves or think of ourselves as, it doesn't matter. There is awareness. If everything is my awareness, or if I'm just a small part of awareness, also doesn't matter. It's just the concept that there is awareness. Can you agree with that, or how do you see that?
Yeah, so awareness is because like a conscious awareness.
Yeah, as it goes on, it will be like into conscious awareness, sentence awareness, but I'm just talking pure awareness.
Okay, but isn't that a fundamental anyway? So why even mention it? Because it is a fundamental.
Okay, but a lot of people, I don't know if everybody sees it as fundamental, but I think that's a very, very important building block, cornerstone, because from there you can work on exploring that. So what is awareness? How does it manifest? Is this awareness? What's conscious awareness? What is sentient? All the stuff that we've been through all flows out of that first principle construction.
Okay, but
So
then yeah. So then that's a given. And when you say you're not sure if everybody is aware of awareness, how would you describe it? So let's say, how would you describe or define one person being aware of this fundamental and another not? And how does that present itself so that we can then say, oh yeah, okay, oh actually yes, I wasn't conscious of awareness, order. You know what I'm saying? What would you define it? How would you define it? Because otherwise it's not even worth discussing. Because otherwise, what do you say? If you're going to say the first principle of the community, let's say you want to create a structure now for the people that are already on the community, and you say first principle, can we all agree? How would you define it? Because otherwise we won't even be able to move from that point. Do you know what I'm saying, Ari?
Yeah, but I would just end there as a very simple, can we agree that there's awareness? And a simple yes or no answer, but actually it's just a yes answer. Because if we weren't aware, then there won't be awareness. So that's why it's the first and the most fundamental. Because however you define awareness doesn't matter. The question between yes and no just has to be yes.
Yeah, okay, So I can tell you what it comes up for me when you say awareness. The first thing that I'm thinking is, let's stay within the context of the community. Awareness for me is that not only my own awareness, but awareness at large. That writing something, it is seen even before it's posted. So like there's nowhere to hide. For me, that's the fundamental. It's like even when we think something, even we haven't posted something, it's already known. Does that make sense? That awareness isn't bound in my echo chamber.
Yes.
Everything
so that's
is
what
always,
yeah,
whether you post or not. And whether you're going, because I think this is another thing that WhatsApp and these things have given us is this idea that we can go see if someone has seen something and change it, delete it. That's all bullshit because it's already, there's an awareness of at large. And before we can even communicate or even use any of our actions, there's already awareness. Does that make sense? And so maybe that's something that people can agree on.
Yeah, because I mean that's why I'm careful to not say like my awareness of personal awareness. I've just stated there is awareness. Okay, because now you can take it to a much higher level. So if you say or agree that there is awareness, what follows from there must be that there is existence. Something must exist to be aware. And we leave it broad and open. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I think you don't have to define anything, but just as a logical progression from there is awareness. So logically, it follows that something or someone or just there must be some sort of existence. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, if there's existence, by definition, for anything to exist, it needs to be a part of existence. So, in existence is all possibilities and probabilities. So, everything that could, maybe, highly potentially, whatever, can exist or can come from existence or happen in existence there will be a possibility and a probability of it actually manifesting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because once again, it's a zero-sum game, because if it didn't exist, then there's no possibility for it.
Yeah. So it's like a seed that's planted and it has potential to become an invasive alien, from one seed. But yeah, and life is this complex expansion of that. So yeah, I get that. But the awareness thing, I think, is to take it one step back. I do think that it's important for us to understand that irrespective of whether we've interacted with another or even anything for that matter, everything is aware of even a thought, even an idea, even a concept. And that may be, and that also in itself means we are actually acknowledged. You know, if we go back to
Yes.
your note, knowledge, we are already acknowledged, because if there's no awareness, then all this awareness is an acknowledgement that something is in existence. So the
Yes.
first few things are, you know, your notice acknowledge is already ticked from that
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. So, but what follows on to that's very important from that is, if I have awareness, then I exist. If I am part of existence, that's, yeah, I have a right to exist because I'm already existing. You with me?
Yeah.
So,
yes. And then there's the possibility or probability of events happening. Because
yeah,
if that's your second one, because if you didn't exist, nothing can be interacted with, and therefore, so it all actually points at back to awareness and existence. Otherwise, none of this would be even possible.
possible. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so there's awareness of existence. I'm part of existence. I have the right to exist, or else I wouldn't. So it's like, it's just those, like, it's just so simple that we skip over it. But it's the fundamental and the very important concepts to actually embody,
Yeah.
not just believe or whatever, but to live it. Because the
Yeah.
whole self-worth, everything goes with that idea that we have to do something to prove our right to exist and all that. No, that's just a given.
Exactly. And that taps into such a fundamental base frequency of the right to be, or not to, the right not to be, or the right to be or not to be. And that's sitting on the whole, on that frequency of shame being this which is a fundamental truth, is wrong.
Yeah,
You know, and
yeah, and that's,
from there it
yeah,
just
that
goes shit.
patient from there, yeah, from there, like that first little thing, I'm not worthy.
Not worthy.
Just, yeah, that's just like a whole spectrum of things that follow that. Okay, so we have awareness. From awareness follows that there's existence. If there's existence, we are part of existence and we have a right to exist. And within existence lies all possibilities and probabilities. Now, the next step, like you mentioned, was events. So one of the possibilities in existence is that events can occur. So for us, we could say that creation was the first event that occurred. And part of creation, or creation, means that events will occur. So we can take that from the wider perspective, the cosmic perspective, or we can take that from the personal perspective. On a personal level, we could say, well, one of the possibilities that could occur in all of existence is that I could be born. That would be an event. So I'm born, and being born it's now a small part of all of existence that has its own framework and its own reference of awareness. And from there, other events will occur. So whatever that is, like growing up or parents, or part of the events that occur sets up an environment. A whole bunch of events sets up an environment. And within that environment, we have different experiences. So we can say that there's different situations that we find ourselves within that environment. So event as a broad category can be things, but also influences, people, feelings, a lot of, well, basically everything else. So everything that is in existence or in creation is an event. So how we treat it, how we perceive life, what makes us feel safe, what sets up our belief systems, all of those things are events. So that's why I'm trying to keep it as the fundamentals, because now we've got a framework of two things. There's events that occur and an awareness of those events. You with me so far?
Yeah.
You agree? From the absolute level, there's pure awareness, which contains absolutely all possibilities and probabilities, which will include all thoughts, everything said, not said, all of those things is part of those possibilities and probabilities. From within that existence, an event occurred which created the universe, or 3D, or the material world, or whatever you want to see it, say the cosmos. We can see galaxies, planets, stars, life forms, all those kind of things. Then we can ask, okay, why did it occur? What is there a reason? Was awareness, that awareness created, or whatever? And those things I'll leave open as well, all possibilities, because once again, all possibilities are possible. So it can be a creator, it can be a God, it can be a chance, it can be just something that happens out of nowhere. It's for us to define how we believe that works. Because all the possibilities exist, so all the possibility, we are free to choose any of the possibilities.
We're free to choose what we believe about these things, but I don't know if we're free to. I don't know to what extent we're free to do this. But yeah, I mean, things. It's almost like an unfolding. It's a natural unfolding, which is the thing that I think we're trying to box and trying to manipulate or control, for that matter, because the idea of it being unforeseen and unpredictable freaks us out.
Well, it freaks us because once again, we try to design a story around everything. So we want the story of creation, we want the story and the meaning of life, and that's natural because that's our way of coping and prediction. Like our brain is a prediction machine, relies on having
some
things in the past that you can project into the future. And the easiest way to do that is through a story.
Yeah.
So once upon a time, in the beginning, whatever, the story happens from there. Once upon a time, there was a big bang out of nowhere. Once upon a time, God created the universe. Once upon a time, shit just happened.
Yeah, the thing is though that a story in its own is not good enough for the individual. So the thing is, we then want someone else to agree with our story. Otherwise, our story means nothing. And therefore,
Yes.
we have belief systems and programming, because for every two people that can start telling the same story, it becomes validated.
Basically, we want consensus around our story. So whatever the story is that we tell ourselves gets validated if other people believe it, and if we can read it and reach a consensus around that. For us, that becomes real, and that's how we create reality.
Yeah.
Because if we just sit with our own reality, that's like a bit like cuckoo. But if somebody else can agree with you, then there's definitely to that idea. And if 8 billion other people can agree with you, then it's definitely reality.
Well, so there is reality and there is coherence, just not from where we're looking.
Well,
It must be coherence, because in 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 the absolute, it's all there. The probabilities and possibilities is there. So there is a chaos or a coherence, which is just, yeah, and that comes to Christine's question of like to who and to what, you know. And I
yeah.
think that is the fundamental thing, is that it's probably, well, there must be a possibility if all things are possible, that at some point otherwise you have to go, let's go 2 steps back. But so actually it's not in creating coherence, but it's in aligning with it. If
Yes.
that makes
Okay. So, all right. Now we get to the community thing. Okay. So, um, it basically comes down to that idea of um, some sort of consensus around some story. Call it a story or a concept or whatever it is, a belief system. Um, okay, so then, okay, take a step back. So, yeah, we come from a natural state of pure coherence. Okay.
Yeah.
If we, and it basically comes back to us again. And now from our blank page, we had a couple of things on our blank page. We had the awareness, there is awareness, and events happen. Okay. Now, how we start defining that throughout the whole thing, the creation possibilities, life, was one of the events that happened is life. And so in life, there's certain things that is beneficial to life, and there's certain things that's not. If it's beneficial to life, we move towards it. If it's not beneficial to life, we move away from it. What we call pain and pleasure, or fear and love. Okay? So, from that perspective, then grows coping mechanisms and belief systems. So neutral events can now start being judged as positive or negative. Actually, right from the beginning of creation, as the material world started, there's that dichotomy of creation and destruction. So the positive and the negative, the masculine and the feminine, all of those, all the dualities is already created in there. But as life, we start to experience that on a visceral, semantic way. Pain is pain.
Yeah.
But it also goes into the emotional pain and pleasure, mental pain and pleasure, energetic pain and pleasure. But all of those are still events, just neutral events. So this is where our perspective comes in. How do we see a certain event? As painful, as pleasurable, as fear, or as love? Like all that kind of stuff flows from there.
Yeah, which is actually the minute we move from the pure coherence into an individual. So the minute we move away from 8 billion humans, where in 8 billion humans there's coherence. The minute we look at it from an individual perspective, duality sets in. And that's our trap.
Yes. And from there follows tribes, countries, ideologies, whatever, religions, everything follows from that basic core assumption.
Yeah, we need to not forget the fundamentals. We are, I think most of the suffering happens because we are so removed, or we have just forgotten about some of the fundamentals. So we become disillusioned. We disassociate, and we need to, because do we? Would there not be existence if we lose the I? Would we stop existing when we lose the I? No, we won't. But we're scared we will.
Yeah. So there's that. But before we get to the dissolution of the I, because as we define ourselves as an I, and an I am, and I am this, whatever, male, whatever, white, blah, 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 South African, blah, 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 whatever that story is that we create around ourselves. And as we look for our tribe or people to second our story and to have consensus around that story, and then to create bigger and bigger, wider stories about who and what we are. But to do that, first thing that we do is to define it as us and them. So as soon as we have a tribe or a consensus around anything, then there is an us and them.
Yeah.
So us, the 1% of the 1% that thinks like that, and there's all the others that don't think like this, and all of those things come into play. And the more that we build on that and reinforce that, then it becomes the echo chamber.
Yeah.
You see, that's what I don't want. We don't need another echo chamber in this world. There are plenty of echoes.
Exactly.
So then another core part of the community is that it's a free, open community, that there's no us and them, that there's no right and wrong, and you can't say this, or you have to say this, or you have to stick to this. Like if we're chatting on on WhatsApp or whatever, you have to stay on target and not go off topic and interject and all that. No, none of that. All of that's cool. Bring it.
Bring it
Because
on.
one of the fundamental core principles of a community for me would be critical thinking and an open mind.
Yeah.
Because I don't need another echo chamber.
Yeah.
I've got a YouTube echo chamber. I've got an Instagram. I've got a TikTok. It's like, there's too many echo chambers. I'm trying to remove myself from echo chambers so that I can understand and be content in my understanding of my story and my version of reality.
Yes.
But also not that comfortable so that it becomes stagnant and boring. That's why I need people to challenge that. So that's just speaking personally. So I'm trying to think as wide as possible, as open mind as possible. And instead of jumping on this is right and that's wrong, to actually go look at both sides of the story. There's always the three sides of the story.
Yeah.
There's your vision, my vision, and the truth in between, or the neutral event that happened in between, which is it's not even a truth, it's just an event. So, but we can have some serious arguments and get very nasty with each other because of an event of somebody saying something or you saying something and I'm dissing it or whatever. All of those things are just events. But we take it personally and it's an insult to our character and it's now threatening our survival. All those, it's just neutral events.
Exactly. And I think that's what's so important for where I see community from is if we take a step back to times where communities were formed not through choice but through real threat. You know, it was the wild against the human. It was nature against the human. So communities were not coherent, not from a individual's idealized self-actualization perspective. It was from pure survival from the wild, from nature. And in those tribes and communities, can you imagine the shit that went on there? And ridicule and from an individual point of view perspective and all the shit, all the luxuries we have actually in this modern time. None of that, they weren't intentional communities. They weren't coherent. Oh, we all agree to these principles of how we feel and how we think and how we believe. No, it was flippant basic. We stick together, otherwise the lion will eat us. So,
yeah,
we are so quick to take offense, but we are not facing what the real danger is. And not to say that, don't get me wrong, that I'm like, oh, fear mongering or there's some danger or whatever. But yeah, have we forgotten what the real challenge is in terms of reality for us as events have shaped us? And we can be all hey shawa about, find enlightenment and like you can just rise above all your troubles today because bullshit. We're all facing the wild. We're all facing things. And at the moment, it feels like the danger is inside communities, inside of our tribes rather than from the outside. And it's so difficult to stay connected and stay in. And most of us, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing isolation. And so it's like it's it's turned upside down now. The wild or nature is, or the real threat is now within belonging and not from outside. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because those are the two dangers. Yeah, outside, the us versus them, but then also who's the ruling of us? Because your tribe mates that want to be boss can be very nasty. So it's all of that. So, and basically, then we come to the two infinite things: power and greed. So, for me, this community thing, I didn't start with an intention. It was just a platform. It's like the opportunity. It's like, okay, if you don't want to submit to fear and be ruled by fear, if you don't want to, if you're not into power tripping and greed and all those kind of things, or that's not the main focus in your life, then cool, you're welcome. If you have an open mind, then yeah, share it. If you have some personal stuff that you want to share it. It doesn't mean that anybody has to fix it or that you're broken or whatever, because that's the other big belief, that something is broken. Something is broken in our system. Something's broken in our reality. Something is broken in. Yes, I know. From our perspective and from our judgment and our opinion and our belief system, is something broken and wrong? Yes. From the greater view, it was just events that happened. And if it's a possibility, then that became a high probability because it happened. So from that level, it goes more, for me, it's going into finding inner peace and contentment beyond being right or wrong or all of the other stuff, or having this community or belonging here and us and them, all of that out the window. What is the fundamental truths that or how deep down can I go without having other options and creating a story around that? So for me, that there is awareness and events happen. From there, we can create anything that we want. We can form stories around it. We can set up everything. And the more open-minded and more creative we are, the better those stories can be. So can we have a open-minded community that will contribute ideas to positive things, to a better way of doing it, if we're going to go down the judging and better and worse or whatever? If we don't agree with society as it is, how can we change it and improve it? And the first thing is to find that inner peace in ourselves. Want peace in the world, get peace in yourself first. How do you find peace in yourself? To have your belief systems challenged, to go through a lot of challenging experiences and events and situations, to experience different environments, positive, negative, all kinds of environments, so that you could distill from that your core self, and that from that self you can develop your own belief systems, not other people's. and that we can feel free to share it somewhere without judgment as far as humanly possible. Everybody judges. So what? But we try and keep it free and open, or open-minded. But it doesn't also mean because it's open-minded that anything goes. As in, just like scamming people or whatever. So there's just clear things as, okay, we're open-minded, but not that open-minded that you can come scam us or whatever it is. So having the ability to respond and not react, to have as much information that we can, and for us to know ourselves and to process it through all the levels, and to be able to respond meaningfully to that. And through responding meaningfully to something, that could be our contribution to the group, to the collective, to the universe, to whatever, because that is what it is. So every thought, action, feeling does contribute to the collection or the collective, universal collective.
Yeah, that's exactly what is needed, you know. I think it's always possible to respond because we are living in and through an organism that has its own reactive processes for survival. And I think we are kidding ourselves to think that we can live responsive in every event, of our experience of reality. It's not always, I don't think it's always possible. And I think if we are, then we are live very privileged lives. And that brings me back to how we are very privileged. And we must be careful that we don't think that this living in peace and living from peace and that is a permanent state, and that we don't, that reactiveness and trauma responses are not, that it's not put below, or it's like if I look at how the most privileged and elite is, and this is not to come to rich and poor and right and wrong and right or left, or all of that stuff, but yeah, I do have a little bit of an issue with the Heishua spiritual enlightenment seeking kind of drive, and like I say, like it's almost like another coping mechanism, and focusing on things that are so actually not important right now. Yeah, it's ironic and actually saddens me in a deep way.
Yeah, in a very deep way. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
look at it, how people are carrying on with each other, and it's just sad and it's ironic, and it's like, it does get you down. And I mean, it's like just like how people like, how could you, by any stretch of the imagination, think that this is going to be beneficial for anything or anybody? But then we have to take a step back again. Okay, so where does that come from? What influences? All those kind of things. So once you take a step back from that, now you look at evolution, you look at instincts, you look at genes, you look at epigenetics, you look at biology, neurology, like the influence of all the hormones and everything else. Then you have to look at environments and situations and traumatic events that we perceive as traumas. And then we have to look at the belief systems, and then we have to look at all the subconscious influences, the archetypes, all of those things. And then we have to look at, okay, where's our energy at? And go through the whole thing, the physical body, the emotional body, mental body, energetic body. We go through all of that stuff. And at the final answer, it's complicated. It's just very, very, very complicated. And yeah, it's not easy to sift through that or find your way through that. And a lot of this stuff we actually don't have any control over. Like what endorphins are released or what protein binds with what to activate what gene. We don't really have control over any of that.
Even that to me is a waste in a way of energy and resources, when we have not even got the fundamentals of human right to be. Yeah, I'm just...
Yeah, and that all boils down to the self-worth thing.